And right now, an all-star cast in the building. Landry Locker from The Locker Room, Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610, Cody Stoots from HOUfootball.com. Cody and Landry, of course, are SNL Texans talk. Man, what a night to come in after this blowout, guys.
Total beatdown, much needed, bye week at a perfect time. They got to be feeling pretty good, and they got a big opportunity ahead with the long homestand and the Monday night game.
Long way that they've come since 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
long way.
Yeah.
It just feels so much different than a couple of weeks ago, doesn't it?
It does. And per usual, former Texan Seth Payne from Sports Radio 610 is here. It's emoji time over on the big board. Landry, which emoji best sums up how you're feeling after this one?
See, I don't know what the description of this emoji is, but right here, no smile, no frown, nothing, just normal, just normal. The ship is even. So I'm picking this. I don't know what you would have to type in for this to appear on the phone, but whatever it is, I think this is the vibe. Not too high, not too low. 2 and 3 heading into the bye. Probably wouldn't have signed up for that before the season, but perfect as they sit right now.
All right, Brandon, your turn.
This is obviously a Houston station. We're talking about the Texans, but I'm going to go ahead and feel badly on the Ravens' behalf, because by the time we got midway through this thing, the 17-0 second quarter, we're talking about the Texans doubling up on the Ravens in total yards. By the time that Cooper rushed through that second interception to Jalen Petrie, I was crying on the Baltimore Ravens' behalf, not to mention that they didn't have any of their guys out there. This was a crying shame on behalf of Baltimore.
Oh, man. Cody.
Now these are good. I've felt enough for Baltimore. They've had plenty of success, so we're good there. I'm thinking that this could have been so much better with the way that they operated so poorly in those first few weeks. To see it look good, to not make mistakes, to overcome mistakes when you do make them, just makes me lament those 3 really close games. They were close to winning those games, not close to getting the offense where it needed to go. But now the offense is headed on the right path. The whole team's headed on the right path. Just keep thinking about those first 3 weeks.
Interesting. Seth Payne, you have the floor. We are all over the board here. What do you have?
I'm just a plain old happy face there. I told you last week, I wasn't delusional, okay? I'm happy to have a win against the Ravens, who, let's remember, they put up 50 on us against, in front of Beyonce. You don't put 50 up on the Texans in front of Beyonce like that without suffering the repercussions. I don't care that they were injured. I spent most of the second half trying to figure out how much Lamar Jackson's chain is worth and how much it weighs. No, this is a good sign by an offense that looked like they were clicking versus a bad opponent, but they got everybody involved. And more than anything, the last couple weeks, CJ has looked increasingly decisive, increasingly confident, and increasingly comfortable in this offense.
Seth rounding up 31, 50, it's all the same, right? And then you have me. I'm right here as well. You have to feel this way, especially that first drive. I really thought that set the tone for the Texans. Speaking of how the Texans are feeling, let's see what they're saying after this one.
Our O-lineman did a great job, and that's where it starts. I think I'm one of the best, when I get the time and I can deal it out. And our O-line did amazing this game. And when that happens, Kels is calling a great game and our receivers running really good routes. We've been getting better at practice every week, and I think that's where you see the growth.
Yeah, I love to see him spreading the ball around to multiple guys, everybody getting involved, and love that he was able to dish it around to multiple guys today.
And now this Texans offensive revival. Could it be Woody Marks? Is it the tin cans they've been playing or something else? Seth, what are you going with?
You know what? I'll say a cleaner operation to begin with, including pre-snap. And we saw this going back to last week. And the best evidence for it is, 4 penalties. 4 penalties, which is below average in the NFL and about 3 times below what the Texans had been getting when things were really sloppy. And where you see it really start to click is a lot of the pre-snap things they're doing, the motion, they're doing it with urgency, they're doing it properly so they're not getting pre-snap penalties. And then you end up with all this misdirection in the backfield that's starting to pay dividends. Defenses are starting to bite on it. You have a Nico Collins jet sweep. You've got all this different option action or option looks that's yielding screens and springing guys downfield just because it's a cleaner operation.
Cleaner operation. Woody, tin cans or something else?
I'm going something else, and maybe I'm gullible, and maybe I want to just believe that this offense has figured some things out. Maybe I'm that gullible, but Nick Caley did not look good the first 3 weeks. The team didn't look good the first 3 weeks, and they had some hard conversations, and CJ Stroud's hinted at it over the past couple weeks. Got to listen to the players a little bit more. So a little melding of what Caley's good at, and a little melding of what those players are good at. Wasn't that what I was promised at the introductory press conference all those months ago? Yeah. Actually using the players' strengths, that's what it feels like for me. He's gotten this offense going.
Yeah, I think something has to do here with the teams they've been playing, but I'm fine with the results, Brandon.
How about the fact that they've been able to spread the ball around? You look at the box score today, and at least 8 guys had a catch. There were 2 guys that had touchdowns. I mean, you look around and, we thought that they were overly dependent on Nico Collins. Where is the burst? Where is the explosion? Who are the options that they have outside of Nico Collins? We were even complaining in the first couple of weeks that they weren't getting the ball to Nico Collins enough. They figured out a way to do both. Nico Collins is getting fed. The other guys are getting fed. Can we mention not just Woody Marks, but all of the rookies now seem to have a role in the offense? So now we're just seeing the roles start to evolve.
I'm going to say something else. I'm going to say unpredictable. And I think short yardage is the prime example of it. They run QB sneak now, so that's part of it. British Brooks today, we saw him move the chains twice. We've seen Woody Marks where they run the ball and they're comfortable enough to do it on 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 3. So I would just say there's just a lot more options, and it seems like Nick Caley is adapting, and the playbook is spreading out like he said it would when we were kind of freaking out about the New England thing.
Yeah, that was something. And now, Seth, is there one instance in this game which you think best illustrates what the Texans are doing right now and doing well?
Yeah, I think that the Nick Chubb touchdown showed that, it happened versus the blitz. So the Texans still have some issues sorting out blitzes. We saw that. But to be able to run against the blitz and score a touchdown off of it, it takes all 11 guys working and doing exactly the right thing, something that they weren't doing earlier in the season. I really loved this touchdown run by Nick Chubb, and it wasn't just because we saw a little bit more of that old classic burst from Nick Chubb as he recovers from that catastrophic injury from a couple years ago, but it was a bunch of things. It was the offensive line. If you look at the right guard and the right tackle, Ed Ingram and Titus Howard, working together to root their guy up out of there. And then if you look at Xavier Hutchinson, we talk about putting a hat on a hat. He gets his hat in the hole, seals off his guy. But then look at this tandem. Blake Fisher as the 6th offensive lineman working with Christian Kirk, wide receiver / 7th offensive lineman. And then Kirk working up to get just enough of his guy to spring Nick Chubb off to the races. Really good team effort in all phases today. I don't care how banged up the Ravens defense was. They were wearing Ravens uniforms playing on an NFL Sunday. They can build from this. They can move forward.
And we have spent so much time on the offense. Look, let's talk defense for a second. Just how good can this defense be? Remember, the all-time scoring defense, 2000 Ravens at 10.7 points per game. Let's let the defensive guy go first. How good can this group be?
Look, the Texans right now are at 12.2 points allowed per game. That's 4 points less, four fewer points per game than the Broncos are allowing. I'm not ready to put them there just yet. It helps. They faced Cam Ward last week. They face another red-headed quarterback, which frankly the Texans have just owned red-headed quarterbacks throughout their existence. I think that right now I need to see the tackling cleaned up. I need to see some of the mistakes in coverage cleaned up versus the better quarterbacks, but they are very much in the conversation of being the best defense in the league this year.
It's their superpower, and the crazy thing about it, and I've heard Seth kind of hit on this a couple of times, and I co-sign this 100%. The standard is so high that it's almost like they lead the league in total defense, and there's still some meat left on the bone. Like it almost feels like they can be even better, and I don't think that's nitpicking. I think that's just based on what they have and what they do. You got the best edge duo in the league. You probably got the best corner tandem in the league. There's probably going to be a few more challenges, but it's one of the top 5 defenses in the league, and they're playing at like the best defense, and it feels like they can be even better.
Yeah, I feel like they're the best defense in the league right now. Now, I'm not ready to put them in the category of the 2000 Ravens. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But when you look at what they've got, like at every level, they have a difference maker, as Landry mentioned. And I actually appreciate what Landry had to say because it kind of helps me strike this balance of not wanting to give them too much praise, but they're probably a little bit better than the things that I nitpick, like some of the run defense earlier in the year, the tackling, like what Seth mentioned. Some of these things still need to improve, but you look at difference makers at almost every level, from the edge rushers to Jalen Petrie being like this hybrid guy that operates around the line of scrimmage, but as we saw today, was able to affect the game in the passing game with 2 interceptions, and of course the stud cornerbacks that they have. This is a really, really, really good defense. Not sure if they're 2000s Ravens yet.
I'm not ready to put him in that discussion either. However, I do believe that the offense has to help this defense by remaining on the field. The 3 and outs kill a defense. It makes them tired. So I'm not ready to put him in the conversation, but if they are to get into that conversation, the offense is going to have to help them.
I think there's just going to be stretches where they are great with a lot of really good mixed in there. You don't have to be great all the time in the NFL on defense to get enough, especially if your offense helps you out, like you just said, Jason. So just have stretches of greatness, maybe a quarter, 2 quarters, where you really just put the pressure on opposing offenses. That may be enough to be regularly good with stretches of greatness.
All right, now, given the good feelings around here, should we revise season win totals from a couple of weeks ago, Brandon?
I don't think so. Now, I'm actually glad that you're asking me this now and not a couple of weeks ago or not last week even, when I was willing to poo-poo the win against the Tennessee Titans because it's the Tennessee Titans. And we can make our excuses for the Baltimore Ravens and not having all of their guys. But look, you think about it now, this is a perfect case scenario for them going into the bye week at 2-3. Now, the games that they actually lost aren't the ones that I would have predicted because I would have had them beating Jacksonville. But all things considered, I think they're about right on track.
Yeah, I had them at 10, between 10 and 11. I think it's at least still alive. I think it's at least still alive, and I think the last 2 weeks have canceled that out. I can't emphasize enough. They've come out and said it, but they haven't directly said it. Last year's schedule kind of wore on them. You could tell, from the Hall of Fame game all the way to the X amount of games and as many nights to all the different slots. I think this schedule was actually set up perfect for them, to where you get the Tennessee games out of the way and hopefully you're playing your best ball when you start facing the Colts too.
I didn't feel like my win total was achievable after the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I was looking at draft status and different offensive linemen to go draft. But, yeah, I think you adjust it just a little bit. Maybe some games that you thought were question marks at the beginning of the year, you made them losses after the first 3 weeks. Maybe you put them back into the win. But I think 10, 11, you're going to have to chase some people down in the AFC South.
Yeah, I had 10. Maybe I'll go down to 9. But, Seth, I'll give you the last word.
No, I'm back. I'm reinvigorated, at least in my hopes for the team, because, and I'll touch on something that Landry had said about, sometimes it feels like we're nitpicking the defense. For a while there, I was nitpicking the defense because I felt like the Texans were going to have to play like the 2000 Ravens to actually win games this year because the offense was lagging so badly. Now that it looks like they can play complementary football, now that it looks like they've got different options for running the football so they can take some of the stress off of the defense, I think they're right back in the hunt. It still doesn't look like the perfect version of what you want. We need to see it versus a better caliber of opponent. But this last couple of weeks has been a shot in the arm.
And now we are ready to talk bye week on Sports Extra. That is coming up. Does the bye week come at a good time for the Texans? I guess we'll find out. With a week off, let's now focus on this. We are talking Nick Caley and Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio will have a news conference on Tuesday, but which questions should either one of these be answering, these guys answering, whether publicly or privately? Which question would you pose to either one of them, Landry?
Well, I mean, I got to ask about Joe Mixon. Like you said, you're going to reevaluate it after 4 weeks. I haven't seen him in the building. So, I mean, I know that they want to try to protect the players. Now, Caserio said protect the players and team. Those aren't always connected, sir. So that is kind of an interesting thing there. But I want to ask him that. I also want to ask him about, it seems like a small deal, but depth is important. You traded Cam Robinson. You said it was because you wanted to play more. Is that a move that's in the best interest of the team? Like, what's the balance between best interest of the team and there. That's kind of where we're at. The offensive line's actually improved. I thought he was going to get bombarded with offensive line questions. Say what you want. They've improved, and they're more accountable too. Juice Scruggs is overtaking Laken Tomlinson. Laken Tomlinson doesn't have the Shaq Mason scholarship from last year. He's on the bench. So that's what I want to ask him about. I want to ask him about the best interest of the team and Joe Mixon.
Brandon?
I don't feel like there's a bigger question with this team other than the Joe Mixon question. It's the one that's been asked constantly and has not been adequately answered. And look, they want to protect the team. They want to protect the information. But look, we want the information. And I think it's okay for us to have competing interests. But in this regard, I think when you're talking about us and asking the questions, at the very least, we can still ask about Joe Mixon and figure out, hey, where is this guy? Is he coming back? Like some type of finality or actual on-the-record answers to what is going on exactly with Joe Mixon.
Seth, are you Nick Caserio or Nick Cayley?
Honestly, Landry's got me a little flustered because he took my two top questions, Joe Mixon and Cam Robinson. And this is what I think about Joe. So my question is to Nick Caserio. I don't know if they even know what's going on with Joe Mixon. The last time we heard either D'Amico or Nick say anything about Joe Mixon, D'Amico said, we hope he's doing well. So where in the world is Joe Mixon? How did the injury happen? I don't expect to hear much clarity from it because I'm not convinced that those guys know either.
I'm going to ask Nick Caserio, when you invest in a player and he doesn't get on the field early on in the season, or you invest in a player and he's not getting on the field because somebody else outplays them, how does that affect you as a general manager, and do you look at how you approach these things? They spent $14 million on Cam Robinson, not on the team anymore. Laken Tomlinson, a few $1 million, not starting anymore. The rookies weren't on the field early on in the season. Does he ever want to come in and say, hey, I went and got you all these nice toys, why don't you play with them?
Well, we have given Nick Caserio plenty of things to think about. Well, appreciate you guys. Cody Stoots, Brandon Scott, Landry Locker, and Seth Payne. Guys, thank you all for being here tonight on Sports Extra. It was great having this all-star cast.
Appreciate it. Happy bye week, man.
Thank you. Christian Harris. I want to ask about Christian Harris, too. Do I still have time to ask about Christian Harris?
Maybe. Thanks.